Michael. Anybody know who George Michael is? A couple of people know George Michael. Okay. What about Marvin Gaye? Forgot who I was talking to. A bunch of black folks with older parents that play music. Marvin Gaye. Okay. What about Michael Jackson? Okay. Let's move over to food. How many of you know have ever heard of Farm Basket? Couple people. I see my real natives in the building. Everybody see them. I see you. Yeah. What about Popeyes? Okay. Okay. Chick-fil-A? Absolutely. Okay. Let's move over to actresses. Anybody heard of Rashida Jones? Okay. A couple people know Rashida. What about Issa Rae? A couple more people. How about Angela Bassett? Last category. Let's go to basketball. Chris Webber. Anybody know who that is? A couple guys know who Chris Webber is. It's okay, Faith. It's okay. Allen Iverson? With the braids. With the braids. Yeah. With the braids. Last but not least, Michael Jordan. All right. The reason some of you guys have heard of or know George Michael, Farm Basket, Rashida Jones, Chris Webber. The reason why some of you guys know who those people are is because these people are good at something. These places are good at something. They're good at something that they do. That's why some of you guys know who they are. That's why they are kind of, famous people in amongst most of you guys, right? So George Michael was a good musician in the 80s. He had some hits. He was good, Farm Basket is a good local restaurant, serves some really good chicken if you've ever been. If you haven't, I just put you on to something. Go look them up. Go to Farm Basket. Rashida Jones she's a good actress. She's pretty good. She's okay, right? And Chris Webber is a good basketball player. He made some all-star games. He was really, really good in college, right? The reason why you know who these people are is because they are good at something, right? But you can be born good, right? You can just be born good at something. You don't really got to work at it. You ain't got to practice at it. I'm good. I'm good at it. It's just what I naturally do really, really well. The reason why more of you guys knew who Marvin Gaye, Popeyes, Issa Rae, Allen Iverson is because these people and places are really good, right? They're not just good. They're really good. You catch Popeyes at the right time, at the right place, it's really good, right? You got to catch them at the right time, right place, but it's really good, right? Issa Rae is really good. She's a good actress. She does production. She makes right plays. She does screen stuff. You know what I'm saying? She's really good at what she does. Allen Iverson, really good basketball player, right? And obviously, really good is better than good. Yes? Everybody agree? You can't just be born really good. There's more to it in order for you to get from good to really good, right? But sometimes you can be good and be at the right place, the right time, the right team, the right situation, the right era, and now you were just good, but put in the right situation, it made you really good, right? But still, really good takes effort, practice, and skill. Yeah? But the reason why all of you knew Michael Jackson, all of you knew Chick-fil-A, all of you knew Angela Bassett, all of you knew Michael Jordan is because these people and places are excellent. They're not just good. They're not just really good. They're excellent, right? You may have a preference on some of those things. You may prefer Popeyes over Chick-fil-A, but let's be honest about this thing here. They're excellent. They rest at the top, right? There may be other people that's up there with them, but you know that they're at the top. Angela Bassett comes on the screen, you know you're about to get an excellent performance. Michael Jordan on the court, you can best believe you're about to get an excellent game out of this person, right? You know Michael Jackson is about to put on. I don't know anybody that's ever seen Michael Jackson live that said he did not put on an excellent performance. These people are excellent, right? And they rest there at the top, and you can't be excellent just off of the right place, the right time, the right era, the right mixture, the right this, that, and the third. Those things alone won't make you excellent. And the reason that is because excellence is a choice. Excellence is absolutely a choice. You have to choose to be excellent, right? You have to not consciously make it to where you're choosing that I want to be excellent at something. You can be born good. The right situation can make you really great. But excellence, hitting it over and over and over and over again without fail, that's a choice, right? And so this month we're focusing on being spiritually excellent. We said last week that a person that's spiritually excellent is somebody that's excellent on the inside as well as the outside. They got the right stuff going on inside, right? Their heart is right. Their mind is right. They choose to look at things the correct way, right? They're excellent on the inside and it translates to excellence is coming out of them on the outside, right? So tonight, I really want to focus in on the excellence part. This whole month, we're talking about being spiritually excellent. I'm going to break them apart a little bit and I want to zero in on the excellence part. That's what I want to go for, okay? Excellent means being extremely good or outstanding. Excellence is the quality of having that. It's the quality of being outstanding. It's the quality of being extremely good. It comes from a Latin word that means excellare, which I'm going to just start using because it sounds better than excellent. I'm going to just start saying excellare to people. Excellare. Excellare means to surpass and to be of the highest quality, right? You surpass good. You surpass really great, right? Or really good. You're excellent, right? So what does that look like on a person? What does that look like? What example do we have of anybody that is spiritually excellent? What does somebody of high quality, somebody that's outstanding, somebody that has surpassed, that is of the highest quality from the inside out, what does that look like? So we're going to go to Daniel. And we're going to talk about Daniel a little bit today because Daniel was one of those people. So we're going to go to Daniel chapter 6, and we're going to read that in the New King James Version, and then we're going to back it up. And we're going to go back to the beginning and go to Daniel chapter 1. So I'm going to have you guys stand. We're going to read Daniel chapter 6. Then we're going to bounce on over to Daniel chapter 1. And we're going to get into this thing and we're going to work this thing out. So let's read Daniel chapter 6, verse number 3 all together. And it reads. Then Daniel distinguished himself among the governors because an excellent spirit was in him. And the king gave thought to setting him over the whole realm. All right. Daniel chapter 1, verse 8. But Daniel made up his mind that he would not defile, take dishonor himself with the king's finest food or with the wine which the king drank. So he asked the commander of the officials that he might be excused, so that he would not defile himself. Appreciate you guys. You can have your seat. Tonight, if you haven't guessed already, we're going to be talking about excellence is a choice. Excellence is a choice is what we are talking about. And so in the scripture, in the first one that we read, understand the first scripture is further along in the story, and then we're going to back up, right? So further along in the story, it says, Daniel distinguished himself, meaning he put himself above the others that were around him, the governors and the satraps. Satraps are just henchmen. These were his contemporaries at the time, because he had an excellent spirit that was in him. And because of that excellent spirit, the king was thinking about setting him over everybody in the realm, right? And so immediately when I read that, I said, okay, so Daniel has an excellent spirit, but I immediately wanted to know, how did that happen, right? How did he get this excellent spirit? He wasn't born with it. We already said excellence is a choice. So we had to back this thing up and went to verse number 1. Here's how he got there. In chapter number 1, it says, but Daniel made up his mind. He made up his mind that he would not defile himself. He made up his mind. In other words, Daniel made a choice. He made a conscious choice about something. He made a choice and he did it internally. He didn't ask nobody else what they was doing. He didn't wait to see what everybody else had going on. He didn't want to see what the situation looked like. He didn't want to weigh his options. He didn't want to see what else was going to come his way. He didn't want to see how he felt about it. Daniel went inside of himself. He had a conversation with himself, and I, and the Lord, and made a conscious decision that he was going to remain undefiled. Meaning he was going to remain spiritually excellent. Meaning he was going to hold on to the decrees and the stuff that God had told him he's supposed to live his life by. He made a choice, right? But what Daniel did that was so cool was he did something that excellent people tend to do and non-excellent people don't do. He made this decision before he arrived at the place. He made this decision before the options came his way. He made the decision before he saw all the food that the king had to give him. He made the decision before he saw all of the wine that the king was getting ready to give him. Understand, at this point in time, the Jews are captives to the Babylonians. So what that means is they rule over them. They tell them where to go, what to do, how everything is going to go on. And the king wants to be nice. And so he says, I'm going to bring in some of these Hebrew people and I'm going to teach them our ways. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to clean them up and make them look nice and help them to learn certain stuff. So this was a high honor for Daniel and a couple of his friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, but we don't have time to get into them, but you should read their story too. There was a high honor for them to get selected for this. So you can imagine for him to refuse the king, that was going to be a problem. Yeah. Right? That was going to be an issue. Daniel had already made a choice, though, within himself. He was ready to take on whatever that was going to bring his way. Right? He made the choice ahead of time. See, a lot of times what we don't do is we don't draw our line in the sand before we get to the place. We have to then make our decisions about how we feel or what we're going to do. Are we going to keep our character? Are we going to listen? Are we going to fall in the group? Are we going to be a follower? Are we going to not be a follower? After everything has already come to you, rather than you making the choice ahead of time. It's so much easier to resist the temptation if you've already thought your issues through ahead of time before the temptation arrives, which is what Daniel did. And so what that kind of looks like is I've made a conscious decision that I'm going to keep myself clean. So at 8 o'clock, I'm going home, right? I'm at her house. We're hanging out. We ain't done nothing. But at 8 o'clock, I'm going home, right? And so when 8 o'clock comes along, I look at my watch and I say, I got to go. And she says, where you going? I got to go home. Well, why are you leaving? Because I got to go home. Well, why you got to go home? Because I don't trust what's going to happen if I stay to 8:05 or 9 or 10 o'clock or anything like that. So I already told myself I got somewhere I got to be at 8 o'clock, right? And what that ends up doing is if you keep doing that over and over, you start to develop something. It's called a habit. Yeah. We're going to get to that in a second. What that looks like for somebody else would be, I decided that I wasn't going to cheat on my diet and I wasn't going to eat out, right? So I only got some fries from Wendy's. I just got fries. I didn't get a whole meal. I just got fries, right? That's all I did was got some fries today. That's good, right? You normally get a whole meal, spend a whole bunch of money. You got 99-cent fries. That's good, right? Somebody else will say, I saw Wendy's. I almost pulled into Wendy's. It was really hard for me not to pull into Wendy's, but I made it past Wendy's and made it home. I almost did it. I really wanted to so bad, but I didn't. You held on to what you said you were going to do. That's really good. Right? You didn't even pull in there. That's really good. Somebody else will say, I've made a decision and I'm not doing this. So I packed my lunch, I made my snacks, and I've already decided a different way that I'm going to get home because I know if I drive past Wendy's, it's going to be a problem and it's going to be an issue. But I've already made a choice and I'm not doing any of that. So I'm going to take a different, even a longer way home to make sure I don't pass by Wendy's. That's excellent because you've already made a choice ahead of time. And so you may say, okay, Pastor Keith, I did make a choice. We talked about this last week about being holy and having to give up some stuff, right? So I made the choice and I'm going to be holy. But this week I got weak. I slipped up. I caved a little bit here. I want to be spiritually excellent, but I caved somewhere here. How do I stop that from happening? You got to develop some habits, right? And so we're going to look at Daniel. And we're going to pull out some of these habits that came with him because he was spiritually excellent. I got a lot of these habits from Dr. Kafar, who did a real deep dive on Daniel. I would like to put that article in the link when we see it online so you guys can read it for yourself. But we're going to pull out some of these habits because what Daniel did was he decided that pleasing God was more important than pleasing anyone else. And it came about in some habits. So we're going to talk about some habits. Y'all ready? Yep. This is the part y'all may not like me as much, but you're going to be all right. Let's get to habit number 1. No shortcuts. Daniel had no shortcuts, and he did the right thing, right? It became a habit. Daniel was so spiritually excellent that his enemies had to use his excellence against him because Daniel had already made a decision that he wasn't going to take any shortcut. Now, I want you guys to understand what we're talking about. This is internal. This is inside. So, Stefan, this is going on inside of you, right? We're not talking about how you're doing this with other people. We're talking about spiritual excellence on the inside. He'd already made a decision on the inside. I'm not taking no shortcuts. Most of us won't take shortcuts on the outside because we'll get in trouble. But we'll take shortcuts on the inside. You know what I'm saying? If you're at the gym by yourself, you may bring that speed down a little bit because don't nobody else gonna know. You may cut that workout a little bit short because nobody else gonna know, right? You may throw a little bit of cheese on your food when you said you was giving that up because ain't nobody else around. But Daniel was an example of somebody who lived spiritually excellent from the inside and did not take any shortcuts. And because of this, when his enemies came after him and went looking for something to charge him with, they couldn't find anything. So they had to use his excellence against him. So this is what they did. They told the king, why don't you make a decree? And why don't you tell everybody that they cannot pray to nobody other than you for 30 days, right? You can't pray to no man, no God, only for 30 days. They did this because they knew Daniel, without fail, prayed 3 times a day. He had been doing it since he was young, and he continued to do it now. So much so that they could count on it. We know we're going to get him with his excellence because we know that he's going to do this. Daniel, on the other hand, looked at this decree, and this is what happens to us so often. You look at something that's come to you, you're like, oh my God, and looked at the consequence, but Daniel had already made that decision that he was going to be excellent. So instead of Daniel looking at it and looking at the consequence, Daniel went home and did what he always did because it was a habit. Daniel went straight home, went straight to the same place he always goes to, window open, and started praying. Daniel, you could have took a shortcut. You could have prayed inside the house, right? You could have prayed in your closet. You could have talked to God and said, God, I'll be back in 30 days. You know, I still love you, but you know, damn, I'm not getting locked up for this. I still love you. You know what I'm saying? We tight. You could have prayed inside, like how we do. I prayed in my head. I prayed in my head. You know, I didn't move my lips. He could have did all of these things. He could have closed the window. That was the one that got me stuck. Daniel, just close the window, and you'd have been fine. But he made a decision to be spiritually excellent. He wasn't going to miss the mark. He wasn't going to miss his 3 days. He knew he could not do something sometimey. He couldn't do it wishy-washy. So Daniel did what he always did, and he went in front of that window and he prayed like he always does. My question for this one is, are you shortchanging God in the way that you and him are doing things? Are you only praying on your way to work because it's just like it's easy to do? It's just easy to do. Hey, that's 30 minutes. It takes me 30 minutes to get to work. So therefore, there's my 30 minutes. Are you shortchanging them? You know internally, you're paying attention to traffic. Your mind is going this way or that way. You're kind of listening to the music. You know you're shortchanging God. You're taking a shortcut, right? Are you allowing the Bible app to read to you rather than you actually reading it and studying it? Yes, I said it. I said it. Yes, I said it. Sitting there brushing your teeth and you hear that man walk and you're not listening. You're not listening. Are you shortchanging God? Are you spiritually excellent on the inside? Or are you shortchanging? Are you taking shortcuts? Are you doing the right thing? No shortcuts. Daniel, no shortcuts. Number 2, you must be willing to sacrifice. Got to be willing to sacrifice. Excellence is a choice, and it does come with a price tag, right? And for Daniel, he had to give up some stuff, right? Daniel had to give up being liked by others. Obviously, you could tell that. These people set him up, trying to get him locked up, got him thrown into a lion's den and all this other stuff, right? Daniel had to give up partying and living it up in the king's palace. Everybody else was eating and drinking, having a good time and doing this other stuff. And Daniel's like, I'll just have fruits and vegetables, please. No wine for me, just fruits and vegetables, right? He had to give up some of this stuff. At one point, he had to give up his freedom and his safety in order to remain spiritually excellent. But see, it was not necessarily something that he ever had. I went looking to see if Daniel had debates within himself or went back and forth with God. Didn't find it because Daniel had already made up his decision, like we showed you in chapter 1, that he had made a choice within himself. This is what I'm doing. He made the decision. And so sacrifice is one of those things. But sacrifice is a big part of what helps those who are excellent surpass those that are just good or really good. Stefan, you took part of my thing, and this is how I knew God was in the whole thing. Michael Jackson gave up his whole childhood to be excellent. Yeah. By the time Michael was 19, 20, 21, there was no adult pop artist that was 25, 30, 40, whatever. None of them could touch him because he sacrificed his entire childhood in order to be excellent. Chick-fil-A spends more money in their research and training on customer service than anybody else. Haven't you realized what that does? It produces excellence. Every Chick-fil-A gives you the same service again and again. They look the same, they're clean, the food is always how you very rarely do they mess up your order. Everybody's happy to, I don't know how they brainwash them people into be happy to be at work, but they figure something out because they've sacrificed and done the research. Are you having PTSD, Destiny? You sacrifice. They've done the research. Whereas you don't know what you're going to get. You go to Popeyes. You have no idea how long. The line is longer. The line is longer at Chick-fil-A than it is at Popeyes. But you look at that line at Popeyes, you know you're going to sit in that line. Whereas Chick-fil-A, you in and out of there somehow, some way. They've made the sacrifice. They put the money in to figure something out so that they can remain at a level of excellence. And it shows. Your food is bam, bam, bam. The service, bam, bam, bam. The cleanliness, bam, 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 without miss. Remember, excellence is hitting the mark over and over and over again. That takes a sacrifice, right? We learned last week you're going to have to give up some stuff, some playmates, some playgrounds, some playthings that has been playing in my head. And I'm really having an issue that you keep saying it because I keep looking at everything in my life. Is that a playmate? Is that a playground? Is it a plaything? And it's bothering me because I like some of my playthings. But sacrifice, right? You're going to have to give up some of this stuff so that you could be eternally more than just good and more than just very good. But my thing about it is, isn't God good enough for you to sacrifice some stuff? Ain't he good enough for you to do that, right? Yeah. And the truth be told, everybody that you are close with, you sacrifice something to be close to them. You give up something that you normally do or would normally like to do in order. You don't watch this particular show. You turn the music down to this particular volume. You let it be hot or you let it be cold or whatever. You sacrifice somewhere for people that you love. But when it comes to God, why are you not willing to sacrifice to be excellent? Why not? Number 3, we're going to do things intentionally and we're going to do things with order. Daniel did things intentionally and he did things with order. Remember, I told you him refusing the king was going to be a problem. It was going to be an issue. And it was a problem. And it was an issue. And rather than Daniel getting haughty and getting mad and getting high and mighty and getting upset and going off and flying off of the handle, he did what he handled it with intentionality and he did it with order. He refused the king's food with decency. That's why he didn't get killed, because he very well could have got his head chopped off for telling the king no, but he did it with order and with some decency, right? He found out what the issue was and he remained calm. He didn't get argumentative or any of that. And then he made a proposal of doing something with intentionality. He said, King, let me come back to you in 10 days. And I want you to look at how I look on my diet. And I want you to look at how they look on your diet. And you tell me which one of us looks better. And the king agreed. But in that 10 days, rather than him just doing that, he studied the king. He studied their customs. He studied their stuff. He studied how they did all this stuff so that by the time when he came back to the king and the king started asking questions of him and his homeboys, they were 10 times better than anybody else in the room. They looked better, sound better, dressed better, knew better because he was intentional about what he was doing. You have to have some intentionality with your spiritual walk. Internally on the inside, are you being intentional about what you do with yourself? Does your spiritual life have any order? Or do you willy-nilly just kind of do stuff? Kind of do a devotional here. I may do it here. I may pray at this time. I may come to prayer week. I may not come to prayer week. I may come to service on time. I may get there late. Does it have any order to it? Are you intentional about your relationship with God? If you ever wonder why certain people, I'll throw Pastor in here. I'll throw Sharonda in here because we threw her name in earlier. I'll throw Jake's name in here because we said his name earlier. Angela Bassett, Jordan, these people. Why do they seem extremely excellent at what they do? It's because they're intentional. They're intentional about what they do on the inside. What am I saying to myself? What do I allow to be said to myself? What am I doing with my time? What do I read? What do I listen to? Even how they dress. If y'all have not paid attention to it, I'm going to show you something in real time. Have you not noticed that she dresses different with us than she does when she's at Central and Eliante? You think that's by an accident? It's intentional. It's done intentionally and with order. right? There's intentionality to what you're doing because they are intentional about what they do and they're orderly about how they execute things. It comes out looking excellent time after time after time. They don't just wing it. They don't just go in there and just throw some prayers up on a whim and just preach with no structure. They don't just preach with no structure. They don't just preach with no structure. You can follow along with what's going on here. It's not all over the place, right? There's a plan and there's some structure. They've made a choice to be excellent on the inside. And the reason why that excellence is starting to come out and it looks excellent on them time and time again, because they're trying to be excellent internally on the inside, right? Number 4, we're going to be diligent, spiritually diligent, right? Proverbs 22:29 says, do you see any truly competent workers? They will serve kings rather than working for ordinary people. They will serve kings rather than working for ordinary people. Diligence alone will have you in places that you didn't even belong, that you don't qualify for, in front of people that you shouldn't be in front of people that don't like you, in front of people that don't like your gender, in front of people that don't like your race, in front of people that don't like your hair, in front of people that don't like that you got glasses, in front of people that don't like your height, all because of your diligence. It will allow you to surpass other people. Daniel's diligence made him. Have y'all ever realized, those of you, all y'all have graduated high school, the valedictorian started every class, first period through sixth period, on the first day, just like you. Just like you. Every class. They started right there with you. Every class. And whether if it was physics, English, math, science, whatever, somehow they started to get up here and separate themselves. They were diligent about their study habits, diligent about their academics, diligent about staying on top of their assignments, diligent about doing the work, diligent about talking to the teacher, diligent about asking questions. They cared enough that it started to separate them. Daniel was diligent about his walk with God. Daniel was diligent about his choice to honor God's word no matter what. This diligence granted him favor with God, and thus it granted him favor with kings and men of power. It separated him from his peers. In that first verse that we read, it already said that he was starting to separate and distinguish himself from everybody else. It's his diligence that was doing that, right? Because of his diligence, he was in his walk with God, it made him excellent. He heard clearly and correctly and was able to interpret dreams with precision. He spoke prophecies with accuracy, some of which are still being looked at and being studied, was studied years and hundreds of years later in the New Testament because he was so diligent and is so serious about his walk with God. Understand, everybody was seeking this dude out, pulling him up. Multiple kings came to Daniel and wanted his services. Multiple kings came to Daniel and asked for his help. Multiple kings came up to him and doing this stuff. And what he said reverberated all the way hundreds of years later. Because of what he was doing internally. He went inside and said, I'm going to be diligent about getting with God, diligent about my work with God, diligent about staying with God, diligent about seeking after God, diligent about getting as close to God, so much so that it made him so excellent to everybody else on the outside. Because he was diligent spiritually, right? And it made him to have what they call a spirit of excellence. That's what the Bible says. And the last one. We're going to prepare spiritually. It's our last habit. We're going to prepare spiritually. So, prepare spiritually. It says that you're supposed to prepare yourself every day for what you want to become in God, what he's calling you to be, right? Every single day, you should be trying to get and become what God said. What God told you you're supposed to be, you should be working towards that. What God said that you could have, you should be working towards that. Every single day, that should be one of your objectives on the day that you are working towards what God has called you to be. What happens to us and what happens to most of y'all is God is showing you some stuff, told you a little bit about yourself, said where you were going, and you really believe that God is going to throw it all on you all at once. No, he's going to give you time to prepare spiritually. But if you don't do that, if you're not doing anything to prepare what he's called you to be, you will arrive at the place with no skills and completely unprepared. And now you're looking like this with like a deer in headlights because you have done nothing to prepare. The Bible says, write out the vision. It says for you to make it plain. It says later in that same verse, if it seems slow in coming, Wait patiently for it will surely take place. God is telling you he's going to give you some time to prepare. But you got to write out the vision. You got to actually start preparing. He said, I'll slow it down for you a little bit, but it's going to come. It says it will surely take place. It's coming, but I'm going to give you some time to get there, right? You would think that prepare would be the first thing. We went through all these habits, right? Don't shortcut, that we're going to do things decent and in order. You would think that prepare would be first. Prepare comes last. The reason why prepare comes last is because you got to first make the choice that you are going to be excellent, because excellence is a choice. Am I going to strive for excellence, or is good all that I can give God? Some of you want to know, how much do I have to do to get into heaven? How good do I have to be to not go to hell? That's the question. That's where you want to be. That's the sweet spot you're looking for. If that was a class, that class would be full of people. I'm taking how far can I go just to get into heaven, 101. That's where most of us want to go. Don't nobody want to go take spiritual excellence 405. We want to stay in the 101 class. But my question to you is that's all you got, is to be just good? Is just being good enough for you and God, for yourself? God, I only just want to be good enough just to make it in heaven. That's all I want, just good enough to make it in. That's all I want, right? Daniel had a spirit of excellence, right? God has allowed us the freedom to make a choice. Daniel's spirit of excellence was a choice. It didn't happen by accident, because we said it is a choice to be excellent. It's something that you have to daily prepare for again and again and again and again, right? So now, why? I've said what spiritual excellence is. I've shown you what it looked like. I've told you how to do it. Now, why should we do it, right? Why should I even try for this? Why shouldn't I just take being good enough 101? Still gets me into heaven and I don't have to go to hell, right? Why would I want to push myself to be excellent? Because it gives you some stuff. Pastor talked about some gifts last week, and I'm going to tell you about some more. Being spiritually excellent brings you before great people of authority. If you are excellent, it will bring you in front of great people of authority. People that you have no business being in front of, qualifications that you don't have, promotions that you don't deserve, things and blessings that come to you that you shouldn't get, husbands and wives that are really out of your league, right? Being spiritually excellent brings those things. It's attractive, right? It gives you discipline and self-control, right? Being spiritually excellent will automatically make you disciplined and give you self-control. It puts you above the best. The best are the best. And then those that are excellent are even above them. If you notice, there's an all-star game, right? They have it in all sports. All of these people are the best people on their team. But what happens? There's always still an MVP of that game, right? Always an MVP of that game. Somebody's got to be the best of the best. And the one that's the best of the best is usually the one that is excellent. Excellence gets you above even the best. It makes you become a person of impeccable character. You have character because you're spiritually excellent. You don't do things wrong because you're spiritually excellent. You put the basket back because you're spiritually excellent. You hold the door for people because you're spiritually excellent. You say thank you and please because you're spiritually excellent. You call your mama every so often to see how she's doing because you're spiritually excellent. You are caring about how your breath smells because you are spiritually excellent, right? It gives you impeccable character, and it is hard to maintain, and it is annoying, but people will start to look at you as a person that has impeccable character. They will start to say things about you that will surprise even your own ears because you're excellent, and it gives you character. It'll bring you victory in the face of opposition. Your spiritual excellence will bring you victory in the face of opposition. All Daniel saw was opposition, and he had chose a long time ago to remain excellent. Do you know that the king, this tripped me out, the king had to throw Daniel in the lion's den because Daniel was doing that praying stuff. He wouldn't close the window. Daniel, just close the window. So the king decides that he's going to throw Daniel in the lion's den. Do you know the king told Daniel, as he was throwing them in there, I know that your Lord is going to deliver you. I know that your Lord is going to deliver you. Boom. And threw him in there with a bunch of lions. He had seen so much out of Daniel's character. He was even convinced this is not a problem for you, Daniel. Just go in there and sleep with them lions. Come out tomorrow. We're going to see you tomorrow. He knew Daniel was going to be fine because he had seen Daniel's spiritual excellence on display. It will give you victory in the face of opposition. Last but not least, it makes you prosperous. The word talks about diligence. We know that diligence is a habit of excellence, right? But the word actually says that diligence will actually give you plenty. It'll give you plenty. It's in Proverbs. It talks about diligence will actually give you plenty. Meaning, if you're spiritually excellent, you're naturally going to be prosperous. Have you noticed that people that like really do well and have a lot of money, they kind of have their stuff together? You know what I mean? They kind of have their stuff together. They, brush their teeth and their teeth are always, the house are clean and they make their bed and they do the little things. If you listen to anybody that makes a lot of money, they tell you the detail, and you have to be detailed. You have to do these things. That comes from having spiritual excellence, right? And so God tells us in the Bible, he says, seek first the kingdom of heaven and all his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. What that means is if you come over and start working on your spiritual excellence, everything that you're looking for, I'm going to add on to you, right? So you want to rise to prominence in the field that you're working in? Choose to be spiritually excellent. You want to be motivational. You want to be able to lose weight. You want to be able to look better. You want to be able to eat better. You want to be able to have that motivation to do that. First, choose to be spiritually excellent. You want to be somebody of value, somebody that people admire, people that truly can help other people. You need to choose to be spiritually excellent. You want to be able to overcome anything that the enemy throws at you. You need to be spiritually excellent. Whatever it is that you are currently working on, and I want you to really hear this part. Whatever it is that you are currently working on and path that you are doing, thinking that it's going to get you where you want to go, thinking it's going to get you to greatness. If you are not already spiritually excellent, you are hustling backwards. You're hustling backwards. You are hustling backwards. It's a waste of your time. You're actually hustling backwards because being great, right? Greatness and what it is a product of excellence. Being excellent is what actually makes you great. So what that means is that excellence is the scent. Excellence is the sound. Excellence is the personality. Excellence is the DNA. Excellence is the essence of greatness. It's what it is. And so if you want to be great, you got to be excellent. And excellent is a choice. Does that make sense? So on tonight, I want to pray. And I want to pray, and I was trying to figure out what God wanted to do for an altar call, but it's a choice that you have to make. And there's not really an altar call to lay hands on you to make a choice, right? But there's a choice that you have to make if you're deciding that you want to be excellent. And as we get ready to go into prayer, I really just want you to have a conversation with God. Assess yourself and ask, am I just being good? Have I only tried to be good? Have I only tried to be maybe very good? What is holding me back from actually desiring to be excellent spiritually inside myself? What's going on in my mind? What's going on in my walk? What's going on in my spirit? What is holding me up? Why can't I decide